Hi, Tom.
Hi
Um,
there. Hi.
Hello, everybody who can hear us, just sorting ourselves out. This is the first time that we've run a double-handed session like um, with Tom, who's one of our colleagues and a new speaker for us here at CIPD. So please bear with us very shortly. I've made Tom a co-host for today. We're just admitting people. We've got 24 of you here so far. So we're just admitting people to the session. Please, we'll keep you all on mute for the time being. If Tom opens it up to questions, we might be able to take questions at the end. But what we're doing now, in a moment, Tom's going to be able to start sharing his screen with everybody, and you should be able to see that. So, Tom, are
Okay,
you
I'll
able
try
to
that.
start sharing your screen?
Okay, let's see. Okay, how does that look?
That's perfect. My challenge is that I have now lost all of my controls.
Uh-oh.
So all I can see is your screen, which is lovely, but there we go. Right, I'm just going to bring them over onto another screen, and then I'll be able to carry on letting people in. So those of you who are participants, you might be able to see, if you click on your participants box, you'll be able to see some little symbols. Yes, no, go faster, go slower. If you can see Tom's screen, could you give us a little tick yes next to your name so that we know that Tom is actually sharing his screen with you? Fantastic. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Chris and Beverly. So it looks like everybody can see your screen, Tom.
Great. Okay.
So it is 2 minutes past 4. Are we happy just to give it one more minute and then get going?
How do I? Yep, let's wait just a moment here. I want to make sure that I'm seeing everyone's chat when necessary as well, because my chat at the moment looks like it's just privately between us.
Yeah, no,
Chat,
you will be able to see everybody's chat. It's just
everyone and
I
me.
responded to you privately. So we've got a nice
Okay.
little afternoon all from Chris, test message from Julie. Just
Yes, I see that. Okay.
one more person. Perfect. Good. Okay. Right. Well, I'm going to suggest that we make a start, if that's all right with everybody. So Tom, I'm going to turn my camera off. I'm going to hand over to you. I'm going to be trying to get some polls up on the screen for everybody as and when Tom tells me that he's ready for them. So thank you for being here today, everybody. We look forward to this session. Tom Bryant is the founder of TFB Consulting. I met Tom on the Arc in Ipswich when he was running a very exciting session about sustainability, which he's going to run for us in the future. But he also has an area of specialism around artificial intelligence, and that's what he's going to be looking at today. So Tom, over to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you for everyone joining. I know for many of you, could be for me as well, this could be my 5th or 6th Zoom session today. So I know we were all Zoomed out, a lot of us. I want to keep this session really conversational. I want to keep it as engaging and as interesting as possible for you guys. So there are some slides we're going to go through, but I'm much more interested in kind of seeing our chat and our dialogue, opening up for Q&A at the end. And obviously the area of artificial intelligence and certainly digital transformation within HR is a massive, massive topic. So we're not going to go down in massive, complicated levels of detail. I want to keep this, it's the end of the day for many of us as well. So let's make a start. I am just going to go forward here. So just a little bit more of the background around me. You can certainly tell from my dulcet tones that I'm not from East London. I've lived in the UK for over 20 years now, but I'm originally from South Carolina. You see here at the bottom, I've got my master's degree in human resources from the University of South Carolina. There I joined Accenture, and I worked for Accenture for about 8 years, or working with large corporates like 20th Century Fox, Barclays, British Gas. Now, all of that was around massive digital transformation. So that was my kind of entree into the whole digital transformation. From there, I became Global Head of Learning and Development for Colt Technology Services. Another about 8 years working for them. I don't know if any of you can still see me on camera, but I just had a beautiful little kitten jump up here. So the joys of live Zoom. There we go, put him back down. So after Colt Technology Services, I started TFB Consulting, and from there, I now have worked over the past 8 years again or so with the private sector, so with Legal & General, GSK, Crown Estate, many others, as well as a lot in the public sector. So another note, kind of interesting note, was I was the senior advisor in the Cabinet Office for digital skill transformation across the British government. So there again, lots of technology focus. I also worked with governments of India, states of Jersey, Malaysia, etc. So with those kind of two key areas or kind of private and public sector focus is on two key things for me, which is two of our kind of biggest transformations at the moment. Digital transformation, of course, which is basically, as we all know, little to do with technology. It's more around culture and workplace change, a lot of digital leadership development. There's also the new side to me of, as you just heard over the past couple of years, which is sustainability transformation. So that's more of the business strategies and training for harmony across people, planet, and profit. That's all I'm going to say at the moment there. Please go to the tfbconsulting.co.uk website and learn more about that. Loads of videos, loads of blogs and things to look at. Okay, let's move on. Enough intro for me. Now, still a little bit of my history though. When I started TFB Consulting again about 8 years ago, I had a mantra, and it's very interesting that that mantra comes up again now. So that mantra was, digital is about people, not technology. It's about emotional intelligence, not artificial intelligence. So I was really, really happy to have that mantra back then, and boy, it means even more now. What do I actually mean by that? Of course, I think most of you, from an HR perspective, will understand that digital transformation or emerging technologies, or certainly kind of technology in the workplace, has little to do with the technology itself. Technology is a tool. We know the challenges really are behind engaging and enabling the people behind the technology or behind those tools. So that's why I say it's very much about emotional intelligence, less about the actual tool and the emerging technologies. Let's see, so some objectives for our session here. We don't have a lot long today, as I'm sure some of you are glad, but some quick objectives I'd like to get through. One is kind of, first of all, demystifying AI. So really, what is it, how does it work, and how is it applied in HR? I want us to understand the most kind of up-to-date AI trends for 2020 and beyond. I want us to see some examples in particular on how AI is being used in the employee experience or employee engagement and candidate experiences, or that's kind of virtual recruitment. Maybe, hopefully, we'll even get to have a bit of a creative exercise at the end where we think about innovative uses of AI within your own HR processes. And then plus, guess what? We couldn't do any of this right now without really thinking about how kind of COVID-19 is impacting all of that above. Okay, so let's go into our first section, which is about demystifying AI. Quick poll. Now we're going to test Jackie and myself. Let's see if we can get a poll here. Before we get started, I'd love to know, have any of you on the call already incorporated some type of AI in some form into your HR processes? That would just be a quick a yes or a no, and then let's just see if we can get some type of percentage
Okay.
understanding.
Karen, I know that you can hear me. Can I get you to log out of Essex and Ipswich, because it won't let me do the polls with us both logged in. So Karen, if you could log out of Essex and Ipswich or leave this meeting, then I will be able to get our polls set up. Sorry, everybody. Thanks, Karen.
Okay, so that's fine. So we're going to come back to some other polls anyways. We're going to go forward. I would be willing to guess that quite a low percentage of us on the call have already started incorporating AI. I know that for our chapter here for CIPD, we have a lot of SMEs, a lot of small businesses, small and medium-sized businesses. One of the challenges with AI at the moment is, of course, we have to buy a lot of it in, so there can be high budgets required. And the other challenge is competencies. So if we're trying to develop any type of internal AI capability, we really need those digital capabilities. So I would guess that we have not so many. Since we didn't have that poll though, let me quickly go into a comment. Let's go into the chat box. If some of you have, in which areas are you currently using or planning and soon to incorporate AI into your HR processes? I'm going to go back because I hid my chat box. I'm going to go back, bring that back up. And I'd love to see if anyone, okay, so I see lots of no's. Does anyone have, do you have any aspects of AI so far? Having it done to me daily as I try to find work, yes. Okay, again, like I say, oh, someone actually saw the kitten. You must have saw me on video still. Yes, great. So, okay, fantastic. I think we're all, lots of no's, lots and lots of no's. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on and let's start to get our heads around this because this is massive. It's coming. We've all got to get up to speed. I'm not saying that we all need to become technologists or we've all got to start suddenly coding AI programming, but AI is having a massive, massive impact on HR and will continue to even more so in the future. So let's start getting our heads around this. I'm going to just hide my chat for a moment and then I'm gonna keep going. Okay, right, while I was preparing for this session for you, it was very interesting for me. I want to share this with you. I went back and looked at some of my earlier presentations around the future of HR. And I did a 2-day seminar in Singapore in 2019. It was almost a year ago today. And I plucked this slide from, without changing anything, from that very session. And it's interesting to think about what they mean now, especially with the massive move to remote working and how we're having to really embrace technology now. In that session in Singapore, I said, we live in a VUCA world and the pace of change only increases. VUCA, of course, what is VUCA? Volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Wow, and when I said that back then, I really had no idea what we'd be facing over the last couple of months. But the pace of change really has increased, hasn't it? I then said, emerging technologies, SMAC, so again, SMAC, very simple, social, mobility, analytics, and cloud. Those are your 4 key areas of emerging technology. So those 4 key areas are all dramatically changing the workplace, that we know. HR needs to understand social, mobility, analytics, and cloud, and play a key role in digital transformation of our organizations. I will come back to that message soon, you'll see. We need a digital mindset and be future focused. We need to be horizon scanning. What is horizon scanning? Of course, we need to be looking to the future. We need to be scanning that horizon of change, of emerging technologies, of things that we need to be aware of that will impact our workplace, okay? Again, I find it incredibly fascinating to think about these points that were made then and think about how we've all had to zoom ahead, zoom literally, zoom ahead in becoming much more digitally savvy and embracing remote working. I also said the biggest problem we face is reshaping ourselves so that we're better placed to change as rapidly as the world around us. That was one of my favorite quotes when I was back in the cabinet office, and that was our former director for government digital services that said that. And again, how real is that for us now? HR should be the digital transformation leader because in reality, digitalization challenges are work culture challenges. Okay, so that was nothing about AI. That is the context around all of the emerging technology of AI that we need to start looking at. I just wanted to pull that slide and also this next one from that Singapore session because it was amazing to me what we've gone through the last 3 months and how this is so meaningful now. One other slide from that session, that's HR must keep pace with the changing organization. Very interesting to also to think about this, how organizations have changed. When I used this slide in Singapore, I was saying we are here, and that was more around kind of toggling between collaborative management and networks of teams. Now, you think about COVID-19 and how that has pushed us forward into real networks of teams, real virtual working. It's almost a workplace of kind of Netflix, Google, Facebook, Amazon type working. And you see this final point down here. It says the teams and team leaders are kings. So our teams and our virtual working and our virtual collaboration, incredibly important now. And that's where we now start coming to thinking about HR keeping pace. Here's a good quote, and I've broken it down. Again, this is our context. I've broken it down because there's several key points here. The journey for HR to pace up with the age of disruption starts from knowing the employees, the business, the environment, and the environment that the business operates in. Okay, so fine. In this age of disruption, we definitely need to understand and get our heads around all of that. We also need to be applying analytics and data science and then framing relevant strategies, okay, which will then be executed using new age technologies as per the requirement of the business. I like the way that People Matters says new age technologies. But of course, that's our emerging technologies like AI. And then lastly, thus in the age of disruptions, the first thing HR needs to disrupt is themselves. Okay, so if I go back and say the journey for HR to pace up with the age of disruption, absolutely, starts from knowing the employees, the business, the environment the business operates in, applying analytics and data science, and then framing relevant strategies, which will then be executed using new age technologies as per the requirement of the business. So you think about the requirement of our businesses now, certainly the remote working and all of the changes and new ways of working, that's now a requirement of our business, and we as HR have to support that. And so in this age of disruptions, and boy, are we in it, the first thing HR needs to do is disrupt themselves. Just made a little note there. So often, and remember, this was a message a year ago in Singapore, HR must keep pace with the changing organization, must keep pace with disruptions. I think we need to move past now this, we must keep pace, and we want to keep pace. We have to keep pace. We as HR in particular, in terms of having the people agenda and supporting the business from a people perspective, it's no longer about needing to, having to, we really want to keep pace, or we simply can't support the business as much as we need to. So one of those emerging technologies then that we need to get our heads around is AI. So now we're coming into AI. First quote, for us as HR leaders, AI will change every process we touch, the way we source, assess, hire, train, develop, pay, and move people is all being informed by AI. That, of course, is from Josh Bersin, which I'm sure many of you in the HR space know, a bit of my kind of hero. If you don't know much about Josh Bersin, please Google, take a look. Great stuff. Okay, so in terms of the pace of change, even before the last couple of months, so organizations have already invested close to 40 billion in AI, with 90% of the resources going to research and development and the remaining 10% spent on implementation. AI is finally starting to deliver real life business benefits. The ingredients for a breakthrough are in place. Now, here's some key points. Computer power is growing significantly. Algorithms are becoming more sophisticated. And perhaps most important of all, the world is generating vast quantities of the fuel that powers AI, which of course is data. Without data, we do not have AI. So a couple of points there. Here's some words we already know starting to pop up: algorithms, data, data analytics, things like that. Also, as I was preparing for you today, I just took a quick look at our headlines lately. And sorry, I've got, again, the incredibly disruptive kitten clawing me. I'm going to put him back over there again. Lovely. Okay. Big headlines, guys. Listen, human-centered artificial intelligence for human resources. That is World Economic Forum. Economic Times says how AI is now driving HR functions at MasterCard. I quickly saw this one: 9 AI trends that every HR must know in 2020. Fortune magazine, AI is transforming the job interview and everything else. And TechWire Asia, how HR stands to benefit from artificial intelligence. So that's just a few of the headline articles I saw as I was preparing for you today. Now, before we go any further, let's just, as I say, kind of demystify this. There are 4 definitions we really, really want to understand before we go any further about the impacts to our HR function. If you can just quickly get our heads around these 4 definitions, it's so much easier for us to understand. The first is data analytics. Okay, so when you hear big data, which we used to hear all the time, is not so in vogue anymore, but when you hear big data or data analytics or data science, when you hear that, just think from a simplicity perspective, just think of patterns. It's just huge volumes of data that we can look at to find patterns, and from those patterns we can find insights. So data analytics is about patterns. Then artificial intelligence then is basically about teaching machines to find patterns. It's about teaching machines to actually almost think like a human, but all they're doing is finding patterns in data and making insights from that. How does that happen? That's from that word that's always thrown around called an algorithm. Now, don't be confused by algorithm. Algorithm is nothing but an equation, okay? That's how the artificial intelligence works. It takes all of this data, it uses equations to compare and analyze and contrast, and from that, insights come, or intelligence comes. And then lastly, you're starting to hear more and more about machine learning. So machine learning is just kind of a subset of artificial intelligence. As I said, artificial intelligence is about kind of computers or machines finding patterns in data. Machine learning is then actually when we can create algorithms in such a way that the computer or the machine or the program itself can start to learn and start to have its own insights. The picture there is quite interesting. When you see a robot, it's actually starting to play the piano. So very easy. So machine learning is basically you're feeding the sheet music, for a piece of music into the computer. That's the data. There's an algorithm that can then, or an equation, that can then start to compare the notes that the computer hits or the keys on the keyboard, and starts to compare that with the data that you've uploaded, which is the sheet music. And it actually just can then start to learn what are the correct and the incorrect keys. So you've got data, you've got an algorithm, you've got machine learning that's beginning to practice and learn how to improve on mistakes, and all of that fits within artificial intelligence. So that is enough of the kind of science. And one thing I love about this area is I'm not a technologist, as you can probably hear in my definitions, and nor do I want to be. I don't want to be a massive specialist in AI and a technologist. I'm a culture transformation person. I'm an HR person. So I need to take these often quite complex concepts, and I need to make them relatable. I need to understand them myself. And our managers and our leaders need to understand them so they can articulate them easy to their teams and to other people. So let's move on from that. That's enough of the kind of science. Oh, here's a little reminder. Machine learning, there's a fantastic video on YouTube, great kind of animation, and it's machine learning explained in 5 minutes. So I'll leave that for you. I'm not going to try to do videos here on this because I know with Zoom that some of us, if our bandwidth is quite low, then there's a massive lag on the videos. So I'm sorry we can't look at that video or others now, but I will highlight them to you, and I'm also going to put the links to all the key things that we talk about here in the follow-up email that'll come out to you. Okay, so that's our background on AI. So how is AI now being used in HR? Loads of areas. Here's some quick ones. In recruitment, is assisting with candidate sourcing, hiring process automation, agent-led video interviews, and predicting new hire performance. That's an area we're going to drill down into in much more depth in a moment. Learning and development, onboarding, reference information, personal coaching. We're seeing a lot of chatbots and a lot of assistance when it comes to learning and development in the workplace. Performance management, I'm seeing a lot of that now with AI helping with objective setting, capacity predictions, predicting performance even, interesting one. We'll talk about that a little bit more because I find that fascinating. Engagement and recognition, that's probably the other biggest area we will drill down into, and more around the kind of engagement and employee experience. Risk management, compliance and reporting, separation and retirement. So even if you think about it, even from onboarding all the way to outplacement and separation and retirement, the whole life cycle is beginning to be influenced by artificial intelligence. So let's look at a bit more detail. And before we do, here's a nice warning for us. Remember, I'm not a technologist. I am a psychologist slash culture transformation professional. Let's not be a slave to technology. What do I mean by that? A little bit what I said earlier, in that technology is just a tool. Digital is just a channel. It's the people behind those channels and those tools that we really need to think about, not just the tools themselves. We need to start with the problem we're trying to solve. I say that to so many of the governments and the businesses that I work with, because often you see a lot of knee-jerk reactions of, oh, okay, oh, it's all about AI, so we've got to have AI, and let's go out and buy the biggest packages that give us AI. And it almost becomes technology for technology's sake. And I go, wait a minute, stop. What's the problem you're trying to solve first? And then let's see what technology is out there to help us kind of help with those pain points and to help us solve those problems. There's that wonderful, you've heard of FOMO. I always say no to FOMO. FOMO, of course, being, fear of missing out. So just a little bit of a a comment there from very much a Tom Bryant perspective of start with the problem you're trying to solve, not technology for technology's sake. If you take the COVID example we're in right now, what happened? Virus came along, we were all put in lockdown. All of a sudden we had a problem. We needed to communicate, we needed remote working, we needed to collaborate. There was a problem. There happened to be a tool on the market and readily available to everyone called Zoom. So bang, that's a perfect example of we had a problem we needed to solve. There was a piece of technology that could help us do that. Therefore, we went to Zoom. Okay, moving on. Let's think about some of the most up-to-date AI trends that are happening now and coming up very, very soon. Here's another quick quote. The simplification of work, increased productivity, taking the friction out of processes and work activities, and enabling people to do less repetitive manual work. This gives time back for more insight-oriented, higher impact tasks. How does that happen? Easier access to curated data, visualization, along with bots and artificial intelligence. So that's what Mike Finland was saying with PwC last year. Now, again, I go, wow, it's when you think about COVID-19 and remote working, it's no longer just about this, oh, let's look at higher impact tasks and let's try to get rid of lots of repetitive manual work. We have some major challenges on our hands now with COVID and with new ways of working and new ways of collaborating. And we need AI and new forms of technology, not just Zoom, to help us do that. So let's see how that's happening. There was also something there about AI kind of eliminating a lot of manual tasks. Here's a poll question for you, and I see it's already popping up. How do you currently view the use of AI within the HR function? Because I find it falls into two camps for people. They either see it as a threat, which is understandable, or they see it as a partner, which I think is also understandable. It should be, augmented intelligence, not artificial intelligence. It should be augmenting our own intelligence and helping us. But I'm really keen to see how many of you view it as a threat or view it as a partner for the HR function. And again, there's no right or wrong here. And I also think that it's absolutely 100% both. It is a threat to a degree to a lot of the admin parts of our HR function, to a lot of the manual repetitive activities that we do. It's a threat, just like just like a lot of the automations and innovations that have happened. You think about in factories and robotics, how that's replaced a lot of human interaction within factories. It's very same in this respect. So I think it's very much a threat to some aspects of HR, and it is very much a partner to other aspects of HR. Okay, and there I see as a partner, 92% so far. Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on. Like I said, I think it is very much both. And for some of you, it's going to make it more of a threat or more of a partner, but I see massive, over 92% of you were saying you already view it as a partner. So let's dig down into that. How is it a partner for you? Okay, article alert. One of the best articles I ran across in preparing for you is the top 20 AI and HR trends of 2020. Okay, don't worry again about these articles. I am going to send all of the links to this will be included in the follow-up email. There was also an excellent video, as you can see, that's part of that article that you may want to watch later. So I just grabbed 10 of those that out of that top 20. I'll have a read of all of them later, but let's have a look at some of those that they brought up at the time. The number one trend was about the human and AI collaboration for better decisions. That's about, I mean, if you think about decision making, though thought of kind of as an essentially human skill, it's been proven that AI can greatly aid decision making, especially with all the data and data analytics that we have now. We have so much more insight and data analysis at our fingertips, and AI can help us sort through that. So I think the human AI collaboration in human resource decision making will be incredibly interesting to have to keep an eye on over the next couple of months. Trend number 2, AI to be used to create a culture of well-being and happiness at work. That is where I'm seeing loads of AI now starting in terms of engagement, pulse surveys, even AI kind of scanning comments and the mood of employees and things like that. There's a kind of the need and the search for happiness at work or working from home is definitely going to propel, I think, a lot of organizations to look at how AI can be harvested to engage and motivate and nurture the workforce, I think, more holistically. They're on the other side. We can come back to this later, hopefully in our Q&A, but there's another side to that which I think is quite interesting in terms of, I think we need to also be careful how fast we go with all of this. I mentioned something about mood analysis. I don't know about you guys, and it'd be great at some point we have some other sessions or we can explore these things further. But I think this technology, it's also starting to be used to keep an eye on the conversations of our employees over emails and calls and instant messaging and other platforms, kind of to analyze the mood of people. And that's simply to help us to determine if employees need to take a break or need to take some time out, or maybe there's some mental health flags that we need to be aware of. How also can we improve workforce productivity, things like that. But again, I'm going, hey, wait a minute. This whole mood analysis and how far we go in analyzing all of the emails and the moods and the emotions of people, I think that's fascinating. And I think that's another session, possibly for another time we need to come back to. How about trend 3, which is AI-powered on-the-job simulated training, certainly tailored for specific needs. Again, now I think this is a very practical and very lovely logistical use of AI. I see it used more and more simulated training environments, especially use of virtual reality, the use of gamification, things like that. Especially now with remote working and a lot of training having to happen online. I think the more AI, the more engagement, the richer the experience, incorporating things like chatbots and virtual reality, that is powerful, really, really powerful. And as I said, I think one of the most realistic current applications of AI on the market. Let's look at trend 4. Again, I just mentioned this. So gamification to enable learning and skills-based measurements. Gamification is nothing new for us now. We've been hearing about gamification for years and years. I was certainly talking about it years ago when I was the L&D director for Colt. But I think because of artificial intelligence and data analysis, the gamification is becoming much more sophisticated and therefore much more engaging and interesting for people. Trend 5, individualized learning plans on interactive LMSs to improve the learner experience. Okay, so that's interesting, where again, I just think we're getting much more sophisticated, and we've got kind of AI-enabled learning formats. It's kind of this being proven to increase engagement, and what they can do is, if you think about, if there's more data loaded into a system of, these are the skills that are required, this is the career path of a person, these are the latest kind of the last couple of years of performance appraisals and maybe particular skill gaps, if you think all that information coming together, of course, artificial intelligence will be able to kind of give us learning plans and career paths. So again, I just think that's very logistical. I think it's very practical and very realistic. How about chatbots? Again, intelligent chatbots to change the way HR interacts with candidates and employees. There's a massive shift in this, and I think we're going to see a steep rise in the use of chatbots going forward. I saw something about HR experts will turn towards these bots to solve at least 30 to 40% of employee queries. Certainly the more kind of mundane queries, but it's doing it with a lot of human sentiment and some emotion and some kind of interesting, just personalized conversation. So I think, again, very practical, and I think we're going to see a lot of that coming up fairly soon. Trend 7, continuous performance management with AI. Again, I alluded to that before when it comes to learning plans. You will see a lot, if you start after the session or if you want to know more, when you start looking at, again, the employee experience and the employee engagement side, AI is going to be able to do a much more continuous flow of feedback, highlight skill gaps, highlight career paths, skill plans, learning plans, etc., and more continuous performance management. Some really, really good tools out there on the market where you're seeing more continuous performance that is driven by AI. And here we've mentioned is their trend 8, more AI involved career pathing to enable talent mobility. So again, I think that is very practical. If I can get some assistance and something saying, here's your current skills, here are your skill gaps, here's your current place in the organization, here are some recommended career paths for you, which one do you want to go with? Oh, you want to go with that one? Okay, here, I recommend these skills, these experiences, these actions to take in order to kind of help propel you towards the career path that you want. As I say that, I'm thinking, but wait a minute, isn't that what our managers should be doing? Isn't that what we should be doing in HR? We should be having those conversations. Yes, of course we should. But the reality, I think we all know of day-to-day life and certainly a lot of things that can hit us, like our current challenges. A lot of the performance appraisals and the career path discussions and a lot of that kind of supportive type discussions, those can quickly go out of the window. We all know that. So if there is some assistance and some extra support to help guide people, and then when they get to a certain place and they need to ask us or our managers or our leaders for further advice, then that's great. But again, I just think this is very practical. Trend 9, so I think across the board, improved and more agile processes that are driven by AI, which will elevate the employee experience. So not just with an HR perspective, but they're saying the trend is that AI is going to help improve and streamline a lot of processes across the entire organization. When that happens and the organization's an easier place to work, then the employee experience is going to be more positive. So, and I think that's good from an HR perspective to hear that. And then lastly, trend 10, AI is viewed as a partner rather than a threat. So I'm glad to see a lot of us on this call already kind of have that view, but it's not everyone's view. And I can understand why there could be some hesitation. And I will be the first person to tell you that I think a healthy dose of skepticism is incredibly beneficial. I think that if you want to hear my thoughts for a moment, I really do think that we will do a lot of experimentation, a lot of learning over the next couple of years or few years. I think we may make some mistakes. I will give you a perfect example of one that you may have already heard of. As I was saying, the way artificial intelligence works is through the algorithms, which are basically just equations. So a use for us in HR of AI is around recruitment and selection. Well, what happened in 2018, for example, is Amazon's AI was actually machine learned how to look at tens of thousands of CVs to start making selection decisions. Well, what it learned, it was obviously looking at a previously male-dominated industry, which is technology. So in the past, very male-dominated. So it actually learned to favor male CVs over female CVs. As it learned to do that, obviously, because that's the data that it had. So that was a massive learning, I think, for us as we go forward. And I think we will continue to learn lessons and make mistakes. So healthy dose of skepticism is always beneficial. Okay, I need to get you involved again for a second. Of all of those kind of trends that we just had a quick step through, I wonder, which of those do you think would have the biggest impact on your organizations within the next year? So if we think about coming up within the next year or 2 years, which one of those trends are you seeing will have the biggest impact for you? I'm gonna open up my chat box again and see if I can get some comments here. This comment from John, all the time I'm wondering about the soundness and the accuracy of algorithms. Look at the coronavirus mess in spite of all the AI and technology available. Again, that's what I'm talking about, that lovely and healthy dose of skepticism. Algorithms, it's interesting. As you start looking at more AI within HR, there's a lot of discussions you will hear around unconscious bias. So we're always cautioned as HR, especially as hiring managers, et cetera, to be very aware of unconscious bias in our decisions. Well, if we're going to start having more AI involved in selection, who is it that writes those algorithms? Well, it's people. So how do we prevent human unconscious bias from being kind of put into the algorithm itself? Those discussions are happening a lot. I know we're moving on from that. We're getting better, we're getting more sophisticated, but again, I think we need to be careful. Let's see, I'm seeing, in terms of these trends, I'm seeing a lot of threes and fours. So 3, AI-powered on-the-job simulated training. Absolutely. I think the training area is where you're seeing the most, I don't know about the most, but a lot of advancement with AI. I'm aware of a virtual reality company in London, and I'm seeing so much innovation going into virtual reality and AI from a training perspective. And it doesn't have to be on that level of massive virtual reality and the goggles and everything. I see that a lot of you are thinking that that kind of training is a big area that you'll be seeing over the next year. And I agree. I see, yes, so I see quite a few 1s and 9s. What's interesting with 1, I think 1 and 10 are kind of almost mindsets. So 1 being human and AI collaboration for better decisions, and 10 kind of that AI being viewed as a partner rather than a threat. Those are almost kind of mindsets. And then 2 through 9 is kind of more logistical or practical uses. So it's interesting to kind of think about over the next year, is it going to be more mindset change or just very practical logistical uses of AI? A couple of points here. Okay, from Kate, we need a smoother performance management system. It's hideous and we're public funded and so live in the last century due to lack of funding. So it's very interesting. where we are starting to see AI being used in performance management quite a lot more. I've already mentioned that. We see that as a trend. What I also want to talk about towards the end of this call is how it's becoming more realistic for even small companies, for public funded companies to get a start on this. There are vendors out there now that have kind of small business costings for a lot of these solutions. And there's a lot of, in terms of building our own AI capability internally, there is free open source software, there's free systems, there's a lot of things that we can start moving on regardless of budgets. So that's something I want to come back to. Okay. I'm just very aware of time. I want one other good comment here. Let's see. So AI is more accessible and affordable for SMEs. A lot of freemium products. Very good. So Giles, thank you. That's exactly what I've been seeing as well. I think that some people on the call or others can see AI, and I can understand as just it's massive, or it's too complicated, or it's too expensive, or it's completely out of my range and capability. And that's no longer the case. Things are getting much more easier in terms of incorporating. Okay, excellent. Number 9, employee experience gets better with efficient and transparent processes, not just in HR, but across the board. Certainly that is true. And hopefully with this use of AI, they will be becoming more efficient and transparent. Oh, question mark there. With the more use of AI and algorithms and programming, how transparent will some of these processes be? Question mark, and I think that's another good discussion for another time. I think we should have more of these sessions, by the way, not sure about you. Okay, sorry, I'm going to stop. Please do continue talking if you can. And also after this session, I think Jackie's going to give you some instructions where you can all jump over to the CIPD group on LinkedIn, and we can continue these conversations. Okay, let me keep going for the moment, because I wanted to show you some quick real live examples of AI being used in employee experience as well as the candidate experience. With employee experience, so here's a comment. As we prepare to enter 2020, and we already are here, we find more companies trying to differentiate themselves as employers and increase business performance by improving their employee experience. Nothing new there. The best companies will take a look at a science-first approach, focusing on improving employees' daily working lives in substantial ways and increasing psychological safety, the foundation of sustained employee engagement. So I pulled that quote out in particular because that's a nuance there that I find interesting, where AI and this improved engagement should also start to give us some psychological safety across our teams. What is psychological safety? Fascinating conversation. I'd love to have more time on that. What I will tell you to look at is, in terms of psychological safety, I first ran across it because Google did a massive kind of research project on what really makes teams effective. And they went into that study expecting things to come out like, particular types of skills and the way the teams are arranged, where they're working, what are the collaboration platforms they're using, etc. But no, they found that things like impact, meaning, structure and clarity, dependability, and the number one dynamic for successful teams was this concept of psychological safety. Number one, and that's simply meaning that team members feel safe to take risks and be vulnerable in front of each other. So not only is that fascinating for us to think about another time and to explore further, but I would say there's a great takeaway for you to think about in this current era of remote working, lockdown, and COVID-19. How are we continuing to make sure we've got psychological safety across all of our collaboration. Everyone's spread apart, everyone's on these platforms, everyone's doing Zooms. How do we make sure people are still engaged and comfortable and feel the psychological safety needed to work in these new ways? So that's a bit of an aside for you. Great. Come back to an actual tool. Again, I can't show you this video because I'm afraid of the lag, but I'll send the link to it. Pulled out one tool that's interesting for you to see, and that's called Culture Amp. Now, Culture Amp has all of this AI behind it, and here's an example of one of their dashboards. You see it kind of gives you percentages for engagement. There's a 6-month turnover forecast. There's the manager effectiveness, diversity and inclusion. How is it doing these things? It's got some machine learning algorithms that show the relationships between performance and engagement. It combines engagement and performance data to show turnover risks. It learns what high-performing individuals have in common. So there's your machine learning. And it also gets actionable insights throughout the entire employee lifecycle. So that's kind of how that's very much about engagement and culture for me. And I think if you watch that video later, you'll kind of see it really come to life and it to mean something. Okay, another example is something called BetterWorks. So BetterWorks is an AI-powered tool that strengthens the employee manager feedback loop. Machine learning algorithm facilitates cross-functional collaboration, recognition hashtags, and goal alignment tracking. It also integrates with things like Google Apps and Slack and kind of instant messaging apps that you may have. So that's an interesting one that's really looking at very much engagement, but also the relationship and engagement, I think, between managers and their team members. Another one, Workday, of course, most of you have heard of Workday, and that's one of the big boys. That's one of the big players out there. Workday more and more incorporating AI. Obviously, Workday continues to evolve. One thing I pulled out from Workday is it's got AI and machine learning to identify employee segments that should be trained for leadership and also those who may be at risk. I got a screenshot here from Workday. Very interesting. If you notice, it says cost to replace top performers, $18.4 million there. And it's also got a list of employees here and kind of risk factors. And you start to understand more about what I would say, kind of succession planning. That's the word I want to think about. And also stepping in. So this, I think this is a great practical use of AI. If it can really intelligently highlight to you major risk factors of people leaving your organization, you then have the ability to step in and possibly do something about that. So I just think that's very practical. When we think about the candidate experience, so here's another quote. In 2020, we will finally see AI having a significant impact on HR. This is being driven by an increase in the use of cloud-based computing and tools, as well as increasingly sophisticated algorithms and HR-focused applications. AI is being used to narrow potential candidates through technologies such as chatbots and candidate scoring. Okay, so now we're moving into this area of virtual recruitment and the candidate experience. And this is an area, I will say off the top of my head, this is an area where I really do see a lot of advancement happening over the past year or so. How else is AI changing recruitment itself? Here's some quotes from some of our colleagues. Number one, more accurate data or candidate matching. So improving candidate matching could leave more time for recruiters to coach and guide candidates or guide hiring managers. It can match applicant skills to current employees. So AI could be used to compare the skills and behaviors of current successful incumbent employees with those of job seekers. Makes sense to me. Easier filtering and tracking in recruitment. So the quote here is, "I'm excited about AI technology like Google Hire, which can help recruiters filter out candidates, keep track of candidates who previously applied," that's helpful, "and match current applicants." And then lastly, accelerated times to hire. Boy, that's something that we all get kind of scored on, don't we? The quote here is, "AI is already a game changer for employers and staffing firms that have deployed it, cutting time to qualify and overall time to hire by interacting with candidates to quickly ascertain their fit for a role in an engaging manner." Okay, so that's kind of what they're saying. I'm going to go back for a second, and I want to go back to my chat. Have any of you used any of the AI from a recruitment perspective? So this is what, I mean, it's great. These are beautiful quotes from our HR colleagues, but anyone on the call, any experience at all? Have you used this in any way from a recruitment perspective? I'm just waiting. I see lots of no's. I find it so interesting for us as well. So, oh, candidate selection against criteria. Okay. I'm seeing a few, but I'm seeing a lot of no's. This is where I find this very interesting, where you start to divide the hype around AI, and you start to see the haves and the have-nots, and you start to see the really, really, really big organizations with big budgets incorporating a lot of AI. And then a lot of the rest of us simply aren't there yet, or simply don't realize that we can do it. So a couple of comments here. Lots of recruiters are using it on behalf of organizations. That is very, very true. And so thank you, Leslie, for that comment. And that's a very good point. That is one way, if we can, if you engage recruiters or you engage kind of recruitment agencies, that's a way to get some quick AI into your process, because a lot of those recruitment agencies are using AI very intelligently. So if you're partnering with that agency, then you're benefiting from their use of AI. And I'm seeing a lot more recruitment agencies with AI that have costings for small business owners. So if you aren't doing it already, then maybe that's something to look at, is that maybe we can get some quick AI into our organizations by partnering with some recruitment agencies to do it. But it's interesting. I wonder over the next year how much recruiting we're actually going to be doing. That's something I think maybe we need to first be thinking about. Is there any way we can employ some quick, smarter AI into engagement, remote working? How are we managing and dealing with our redundancies? How are we dealing with our kind of furloughed staff, things like that? Right, okay, yeah. I'm going to come out of this. I will look forward to looking back at the group chat when I can. And then, as I say, well, we can hop over to LinkedIn and continue these conversations, and to be a little bit more engaging, me not having to manage slides at the same time. So here's another tool focus. So this is around the interviews and assessments. Absolutely fascinating area. How does it work? Number one, they're analyzing a verbal response, analyzing the intonation and nonverbal communications, and it's using machine learning then and those algorithms to predict potential employees' skills, their fit, and their future job performance. Wow, that sounds like the more advanced side of AI to me. There is a wonderful example of this. It's called HireVue. HireVue is, I think, a US company, but it's being used more and more and more in the UK. So some of you maybe have run across it already, or you will soon. Again, lovely kind of video to bring it to life to you, not just looking at a slide. And I'll include that link in the email. Also, hey, I did a quick screenshot of HireView's website. I found this was very interesting. They have a whole comment here around COVID-19. So it says pre-employment testing and video interviewing platform, how to maintain business continuity and succeed in the new normal. So makes complete sense to me. Online interviewing, online assessments, online hiring, that is happening now more and more, and it certainly will continue to in the near future. So I think you're going to see a massive rise in companies like HireView and platforms that can either just do the video interviewing or can not only do the video interviewing but also the analysis of that to help us. So very, very interesting. And there's another more UK, oops, come on, there we go. There's another more UK tool example for you called Tazio. And here's their screenshot when I just looked at it yesterday. In these uncertain times, trust Tazio to deliver virtual recruitment and employee development. So these companies, again, it's almost like Zoom. It's like I said, start with the problem you're trying to solve. I'm sure HireView and Tazio are fascinating pieces of technology, and that is really, really interesting, but I'm not interested in it for technology's sake. I'm not interested in that just because it's fascinating and it should be on Click, on BBC's Click. I want it because I've got a problem I need to solve. And I think these companies and others are really going to rise to the occasion during our lockdown and going forward. Speaking of the lockdown, okay, so the world is temporarily closed, beginning to reopen for some of us. Let's see how that goes over the next couple of weeks for us. COVID-19 is becoming the accelerator for one of the greatest workplace transformations of our lifetime. I can certainly agree with that. You know, over the past couple of years, I started transitioning a little bit more out of digital transformation and into sustainability and environmental transformation. But now, with what's happened over the past couple of months, I mean, digital transformation and the kind of the new normal and this new way of working and the culture transformation required, bang, I can see myself being pulled right back into this, which is okay because I'll go back to environmental sustainability a bit more when we open up more and we have even more problems from an environmental perspective. But now is where we need to really focus on culture transformation. And boy, what a great kind of case, worldwide case example for us to be analyzing. Okay, another article alert. I will send this link to this to you as well. So the rise of the AI-powered company in the post-crisis world. This is a fantastic article from Boston Consulting Group. Let's look at kind of 4 key points from this article. One, AI-enabled platforms will help companies better simulate live work environments and create on-demand labor forces. Okay, that sounds like an interesting one. Through machine learning and advanced data analytics, AI will help companies detect new consumption patterns and deliver hyper-personalized products to online customers. Okay. The most successful use cases will be those that seamlessly combine AI with human judgment and experience. And lastly, advanced robots that can recognize objects and handle tasks that previously required humans will promote the operation of factories and other facilities 24/7 in more locations and with little added cost. Okay, so all 4 of those points, I think we could have some really interesting discussions about them, but I challenge you to kind of think about, even after our conversation, really think about HR's role and how it's being impacted, how we're evolving. If I just look at 2, the first one, AI-enabled platforms will help companies better simulate live work environments and create on-demand labor forces. What does that mean to us as HR? What is that, live work environments? What is our role in that? How do we help enable that? How do we do the culture transformation required for our people to be in live, simulated work environments. Fascinating. Just choose the bottom one. Well, there's the old conversation around robotics and robots taking the place of humans. Advanced robots that can recognize objects and handle tasks that previously required humans. Now that makes a lot of sense to me from a COVID-19 perspective, because if we are able to minimize or lower risk through kind of more automation, then you're exposing less people with each other in the workplace, in some factories, for example. So that makes sense to me. What does that mean to HR? What does that mean for our role? How do we help enable that? What are the challenges that come to us from a people agenda perspective? Absolutely fascinating. Okay, let's get a little creative. I'm very conscious of time here, and I want to save some time for questions, and I also want to try to finish a little early for you in case you want to jump over to LinkedIn and continue the conversations with each other. But let's kind of get creative. We just went through loads of trends, loads of innovations, loads of advancements. We've got a brand new remote working challenge because of COVID-19. How can you imagine AI partnering with you in some of your own HR processes? If you think about L&D or recruitment or performance management, compensation and benefits, employee engagement, certainly the COVID-19 challenges. Give me, what do you think? Get really creative. What can you imagine using AI for? I'm going to jump over, I'm going to open my chat box again. And I would love, whoops, sorry. I want to look at those and I want to come back to that. Okay. So here's some quick ideas. I wish that we were together. Do you know that a few months ago when we were talking about doing this session, it was going to be face-to-face. And when we got to this part of the session, I was going to introduce design thinking. We were going to break out into fantastic groups. We're going to get really creative, really innovative, maybe even do some quick on-the-spot prototypes. But obviously we can't do that quite at the moment. So in the absence of that, let's just kind of think about some really creative things we could do. And I'm going to see Giles, let me have a look at Giles. Giles has been really interactive during the session. Thanks for that. Matching courses and resources to employee learning and career frameworks. Absolutely. That is something that is done across many tools already at the moment. I think it's great to have a look at what's out there, Giles, and possibly what you could be using already. Prices are coming down. There's a lot of innovation. There's a lot of free courseware, software, open source, where we can start to do that, because that's not a difficult thing to do, matching courses across resources and employee learning. The only thing, of course, is a lot about uploading the data. So, but that's another challenge for another time. Using AI as part of a social performance platform. Real-time data, changing annual appraisals to ongoing development. Absolutely. Again, that is something that is very much happening. We mentioned it earlier. Liz, use AI for me would be answering the usual questions about pensions and benefits. That's where your chatbots are coming in, where a lot of the kind of general or mundane queries can all be handled through chatbots and artificial intelligence. And that is not as boring as it sounds, because as I say, they're starting to incorporate a lot of kind of emotion, making them emotive, making them more conversational, more human. So, so those queries can be handled, but they can be handled with a form of a bit of engagement as well. Managing remote employees and tracking their active versus downtime, not to spy, to manage responsibly. Yeah, I think that's a very good point. There's something around productivity, and yes, I understand there's an element of the kind of the big brother or spying too much. But I kind of fall on the side of how can we help people more? It's such a challenging time with these new ways of working. How can we help people be more productive? How can we get flags to say someone may be needing some extra help or maybe suffering? So definitely, I think that would be excellent to be able to employ some AI for that. And we're certainly having to manage a lot more remote employees now. Bite-sized training that can be done in the odd 5 minutes between customers, definitely. So the thing with AI that I like, that I'm seeing, is that depending on your activities and what you've got on your plate and what you're trying to do, AI can start to understand what quick 5-minute training you need in order to be more productive. So it's actually proactively highlighting skill development, which I think is brilliant. So maybe even before you ask for a piece of training, you're actually getting it, because the AI is going, okay, you seem to be doing a lot more customer query about X. Here's a 5-minute video, so you can come up to speed very quickly on X. And that's proactively coming to you. You don't have to seek it out. Personally, I've been much more engaged with the branch so I can assess things online. WorkFusion currently uses, WorkFusion I've heard of, this is from Giles again, currently uses AI to break down a project into tasks for freelancers. Oh, yes. Collates and assesses, then learns machine learning from the process to then replace some human tasks or elements of the project going forward. Absolutely, fantastic. Good, okay, so I'm conscious of time. I'm going to close that down for a moment, but I'm not closing our conversation. I'm just going to go back to the slides to start to wrap up. Okay, so I don't think I even need to ask this question again. Let's do it. Did anything change? So what I'm asking again is that same question of how do you now view the use of AI within the HR function? Has your view changed at all through all of that stuff we just looked at? Do we see it as a potential threat? Do we see it as a real partner going forward? I can imagine it would have changed a lot. Maybe a few that saw it as a threat, maybe see it more as a partner now, because of there's so much capability, there's so much potential out there for us. And so it's fitting to what we saw earlier, and that's very much about being a partner. Excellent. Okay, I'm going to close that. I'm going to stop sharing that. Share results. Okay, so that was really quick, my friends. What did we do for the last more than an hour? We kind of hopefully demystified some of the AI. Like I said, one thing that I really like about this area of kind of transformation is that it's little to do with the technology. Yes, of course, I've worked in and around technology for the last 25 years, but it was never about the technology for me. And I always was trying to demystify a lot of the complicated concepts. And that's what we need to do as HR professionals, especially when we need to more and more articulate to others. So we need to articulate what AI is to our teams. We need to articulate what machine learning is. And remember, it's really easy. Whenever you hear data analytics, just think patterns, large volumes of data, and simply to find patterns amongst that data. Artificial intelligence is simply teaching machines to find patterns in data. Machine learning is about the algorithms in place so the machine can actually start teaching itself about data and insights. What else did we do? We looked at least 10 of the most kind of current, up-to-date AI trends. We also saw some specific examples within candidate employee experiences. We did a bit of a creative exercise on innovative uses of AI, not as much as I would have liked if I had you in front of me, and we had wonderful breakout groups. And then we also discussed, certainly here and there, about the COVID-19 impacts at the moment. Some of the biggest takeaways, it was a short amount of time, but kind of remember my old mantra, and remember that was digital is about people, not technology. It's about emotional intelligence, not artificial intelligence. I think there's another point, a lot of exciting innovation. Please couple that with some healthy skepticism, which I think you already are doing. Two of the biggest areas of advancement that we're seeing in AI is around employee engagement, and it's around virtual recruitment. Digital transformation, including the embedding of AI, should be, if not led by HR, it should be, co-led. It should be sponsored as well by HR, because it is a people and a culture change. Again, I'm preaching to the choir. I think you guys know that. But with that in mind, HR, no more technophobes. It's not about you becoming a technologist and that you have to start suddenly coding, but we need more sessions like this. We need to get our heads around emerging technology. Things are happening too fast. And it is technology that's going to help support us in our workplaces quite often going forward. So let's do some horizon scanning. Let's get simple concepts in our heads like we've done with AI and machine learning. Okay, there are vendor tools and free open source software out there. Please do some research on that. It's getting cheaper, it's getting easier. There is a point I want to look at. I just want to recommend something to you, because I get a question quite a lot, and that's, I have a very small organization, or I've got a very limited budget. Where do I start in terms of AI? And I want to recommend an article to you, and I'll send the link. It is called 6 AI Business Tools for Entrepreneurs on a Budget. And that will start to walk you through some of the free options out there, as Giles was mentioning some as well. So there, like I said, I'll send you a link. Just simply Google 6 AI business tools for entrepreneurs on a budget, and that will get you started on that. Before thinking about COVID-19 plus AI solutions, I think you'll be hearing a lot more about that, obviously, in the coming months. Okay, so some questions. Let's just take, I'm very conscious of the time very much, so I'll take just one, maybe 1 or 2 quick questions, and then I promise I'm gonna let you go. So if I open my chat out again, any quick questions that we can cover, and then, as I say, I'm just about to hand back over to Jackie, and she's going to tell you where we can go to continue to have our conversation. Excellent. No questions. Oh, one question. Do you see AI combining with tools like blockchain? Absolutely. So blockchain, of course, then is another one of our emerging technologies. What makes blockchain interesting is that hopefully through a process like blockchain, which is in a way, remember, really simple, just kind of a virtual ledger, maybe with blockchain, we can start to get more of that transparency we were talking about in processes that involve a lot of AI. Because if there's a lot of programming, a lot of behind the scenes AI, which is making decisions for us, through things like blockchain, we'll have a very clear kind of ledger of how those decisions and what data is being used. So yes, I definitely see blockchain coming in. What is the biggest challenge in incorporating AI into HR? I think that's 2 big challenges. One, like I said, I think it's budget. So there's a lot of vendors out there, and there's a lot of software that you can get. but budget may be a problem for us. So that's one challenge. The second challenge, again, I said, is competencies. So we need to get the competencies within HR to help us develop more AI. So I see budgets and competencies being a major challenge. Okay, can I get one more? What would be your top? Which do you feel is the most exciting areas of AI being used in HR currently? I mentioned that where I think it's around learning and development. I think with learning plans proactively coming to you, and then actual remote learning and development that is incorporating things like AI and virtual reality and chatbots and just a real immersive, engaging experience, that is very realistic. It's very current. It is happening now. And I think that's one of the most exciting areas that we've got. Okay, I'm sorry, I wish there was more time for questions. I will look at these. Please, anyone, let me go back here. Please, 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 keep calm and embrace AI. Thank you very much. There's my all of my contact details. I'm really sorry we've run out of time. If you want to contact me with any further questions that you've got, I'm really happy about that. It's forcing me to learn at the same time. So please do reach out if I can help you in any way. And Jackie, I think with that, I've got to hand back over to you.
Lovely. Thank you very much indeed, Tom.